One of the many disappointments that came with Big Ears being canceled this year was missing a chance to see Mike Baggetta and his band Main Steam Stop Valve play at the festival. Knoxville is Mike's hometown, and I'm sure he would have been loving playing in his hometown. But instead, I got a chance to catch up with him through technology and talk about the first studio record by that band, which includes Mike Watt and Stephen Hodges, and also dive deep into his gear. And if you look below this video, you'll see he sent me some great pictures of the gear, and so you can refer to those while we're talking about it. So buckle up and get ready for a great interview with one of the shining lights of modern guitar these days, Mike Baggetta. Put on a call recorder, and yeah, let's get right into it, and we can catch up afterwards. But
Okay.
I was curious, how did recording this record, Mainstream Stop Valve, differ from recording Wall of Flowers?
Well, it's main steam stop valve.
Main
Uh,
Steam, that's right. I
and
have it written Steam, and I keep calling it Street for some
for
reason.
whatever reason, this album name, band name seems to like catch everybody's spell check autocorrect off guard. So there's like a million incorrect variations already. But yeah, it's main steam stop valve. And recording wise, I think recording wise, it's a lot more kind of like we got out what we put in versus the Wall of Flowers, which was we got something really different out of what we put in a way. So Main Steam Stop Valve by MSSV, the band of sort of the same name. Um, we went in with this set of tunes and we pretty much recorded mostly first takes for everything with not a lot of overdubs. And then we got the record out of that. There's a couple of overdubs on this one. There's like some acoustic guitar on the first track, The Mystery of, that was overdubbed. And then I think there's a couple of just double tracked electric parts on Chart of Course, maybe something else. All the vocal stuff we did separately, but we did it all live over the tunes, I think on the second day. So, but the reason we were able to do that was because we did a string of gigs leading right up to the recording, which I think was really helpful and sort of my preferred way to operate when I have a recording coming up, doing a bunch of gigs, getting the music kind of not only together, sort of in front of an audience. I think that sort of makes it count a little bit more, but developing it a little bit too, like the way that you might play it live. Because what's happened to me before in some of my other groups, but mostly when I'm doing stuff with other people, is they'll get all the music together and, we'll do a couple rehearsals or whatever, record the music. And then when the album comes out, then you do a tour. And what I always have found to be true is that at the end of that tour, the music is so much tighter and better and like more fully discovered. But the problem is we already recorded it like a year ago. And I always wish, well, we should record it now. So from those lessons, I've always kind of tried to do my music the other way around. And that's the way we did the MSSV record. Wall of Flowers, on the other hand, just for contrast, like you brought up, that me and Mike and Jim had never met before that session. So we went in. I had some tunes, but a lot of them we didn't do. We just ended up improvising. And then I took a lot of those improvised tracks, went home, transcribed a bunch of stuff, and then recomposed material with those transcribed sections and kind of reassembled and reorchestrated to get music that we maybe didn't think we were going to get when we went in to record it.
Yeah, I guess you not being a pop, I mean not being a top 40 pop band, I guess the problem they have
What?
is yet the problem they have is that when they go out, people want to hear the tunes from the record they just recorded. Top, top 40 type pop bands are not, their fans are not known for being adventurous necessarily and into new material. So I guess in terms of, and especially as a new band, the audiences you were playing for, it's kind of all new to them to a certain extent. I mean, there might have been some Wall of Flowers fans, but did you find that mostly you were getting people who just were kind of recently getting hip to the band and coming out to see it?
Yeah, I think there were some people calling out for Wall of Flowers tunes actually while we were playing shows, which was kind of fun. And we did have a couple ready to go that we'd kind of reworked. So there was that, and yeah, I mean it's a new band, so they don't really know what we're gonna play. But I think one of the good reasons we did this is because, we didn't do like a 30-day tour and then make the record. We did 5 shows. And in this case, they were all in California. I had this brilliant idea. I wanted to hit every climate zone in California. This is back in December. But we missed I forgot all about the actual top half of California, like the redwood half. So we played in Pacifica on the shore around the Bay Area. Then we played in Oakland. Then we played in Bakersfield. And then we played in Joshua Tree. And then we played in LA. So it's only those 5 shows.
Right.
So, and then we made the record and the music sounded and felt really good. And now the album's out and people can check it out. And then hopefully at some day we'll do the big tour. And then people can kind of expect the music. But it'll have been recorded in a way where it felt like we really got it to a good place too, in that sense.
Right. And 5 shows as opposed to 30, it was still fresh, maybe a little fresher in a way.
It kind of had that balance of it's still new, so it's still exciting, and we're still trying to kind of suss some things out, but it had been done enough in front of an audience, which I think is key to kind of solidify some of the things that we needed to sort of just figure out about it.
I don't remember if I asked you last time, but how does improvising with Mike Watt differ from improvising with a jazz bassist? You do a fair amount of quote unquote jazz gigs. How is that different playing with him when you're especially improvising?
Excuse me. Yeah, I think I just kind of think of it as the difference of playing or improvising with anybody. That's different. I try not to have that expectation of like, okay, this is a jazz, quote unquote, you're known as a jazz bassist, so I'm going to expect you to do A, B, and C. I don't like that kind of thought process because I feel like the people I play with, I want to play with because they're great players, not because they're great players of X genre. Does that make sense?
Sure.
What I think is key about everybody is that if you're a great musician, there are sort of a lot of fundamental things that should be happening. So I mean, like, I'm trying to put this succinctly and thoroughly at the same time. I think like listening is going to be happening, and reacting to each other is going to be happening. And I think also the feeling of like there's not an expectation that we're supposed to be doing like a stereotype kind of thing. I think if you're playing with great musicians, those things don't exist at a certain level, or at least for me, I don't want them to. The moments I've kind of regret the most in whatever sort of career I've had so far musically have been when I've been in a situation and someone feels like let down or sort of unhappy with the fact that maybe I wasn't doing something that they expected I was going to do based on secondhand information or something like that. Like, oh, can you play more like so-and-so kind of a thing? And I always go like, well, what's the point of that? That's not what I love about music.
Call so-and-so.
Yeah, basically, and of course the answer is that they can't call so-and-so, so they're trying to figure, people like things a lot of people like things that they already know exist. You know what I mean? Like,
sure. People don't know what they like what they know.
Yeah, and it makes sense because you kind of can't know that you like something if you don't know what it is, right? But you can like the adventure of that, and kind of the excitement of not having an expectation. And to me, that's something that I know that I like. So I definitely don't try to put that on anybody. And the reason I call people to play with or try to end up playing with certain people is because I love their personalities in music.
So, was there any group who wrote the tunes on this? Was there any group writing, or was it you and or what or?
Yeah, a lot of the music was written by me, but there are two instances of co-writes, 9/20 December and the Eureka Moment. I supplied most of the music, and then Watt supplied the lyrics, the words, and the vocals, the spiel, as he would call it. And then we did another song that is just a Mike Watt song, and that's called June 16th. And the original version of that is on the Minutemen record, Double Nickels on the Dime. And that's a really crazy kind of story for me, because that's one of the first songs that I sort of learned to play from ear, like from the record when I was in high school. That song June 16 from Double Nickels. And I learned it because, well, because it sounds amazing. And I forget how I got the record. I can't remember if somebody taped the record for me and gave it to me, or I found it in the bin at the record store or something. But that album is great. I don't know if you're familiar with that album, Double Nickels from the Minutemen, but tons of killer songs on it, killer words, killer riffs, grooves, all this kind of stuff. Just an amazing record. But this song, June 16th, this song of Watts is on there, is an instrumental tune. And, kind of my whole background is like my dad plays guitar. We've talked about all this stuff before. I come from like a pretty heavy sort of jazz study background, but I also came up, like Nirvana hit when I was in high school. And so that whole scene I was really into musically and learning all that stuff. At the same time, listening to Coltrane and listening to Jim Hall, I was listening to, Jeff Beck and Nirvana and going back and kind of discovering all the music that led to all that stuff. So it's a pretty wide range of stuff. But one of the things I was talking about with Watt the other day, I came up listening to a lot of music that had lyrics, that had words, and a lot of music that didn't have words. And to me, there was never any division of like, oh, instrumental music is kind of like less emotionally obvious than music with lyrics. I never really had that kind of thing. So for me, instrumental music was always able to be on the same emotional wavelength as music with lyrics. It's just, I heard that there was a way you could connect with people in both ways. And I think now I'm kind of maybe late to the game, understanding that that's not the case for most people. Why didn't anyone tell me? But so to hear that track, June 16th on Double Nickels from the Minutemen, is this instrumental track from this band that usually had words, right? So that kind of stuck out to me. But also D. Boone's guitar playing on that track also stuck out to me. He plays this solo that's like, there's so much space in it. It's like he's kind of barely playing the solo. And the stuff he does play is like a little bit atonal, which was also appealing to me at that time. It was just really stuck out as something like really interesting that this would be on this record. And at the same time, my birthday is June 16th. So there was a part of me that was like, oh, I should learn this, Of course, it's written about the James Joyce Bloomsday Connect. But anyways, all these little go-betweens and stuff. So we were going to make this record, and I asked Watt if we could play this tune of his, if we could try to do a different version, because I didn't want to try to recreate it. And so then as a group, we kind of came up with this sort of new interpretation of it. It's slower than the original. It's a little spacier than the original, and the solo kind of area has been elongated, but I definitely use a lot of D. Boone's material to sort of build off of on that. So I was really grateful to him to let us do that new version of that.
Cool. Remember, I'm videotaping this, so if you want to have the toothpick in your mouth, it's a conscious decision.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's there.
Okay. Um, that's fine by me.
You
So,
may as well know me as I am. You know.
were you playing jazz at the same time you were learning the Minutemen stuff, or were you already playing jazz?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was in like high school jazz band and stuff like that. But I mean, I was listening to the Jim Hall live album. I think my dad had like a couple of Wes Montgomery albums on like reel to reel that I would check out. Um, I got my first couple of jazz albums I got. Well, you know, my dad had the Jeff Beck Wired record, and I loved that album. And I loved especially that track. He plays Goodbye Pork Pie Hat, the Charles Mingus tune.
Right.
And I remember like looking at the liner notes to that album, and you know, this is a time where I'm trying to figure out like what's going on in music, like what is all this stuff everybody's doing that's so great. And it struck me as interesting that this song, Goodbye Pork Pie Hat, was written by somebody who was not playing on this album. You know, like it wasn't written by Jan Hammer or Jeff Beck, or it was written by Charles Mingus. Well, but he doesn't play on the record, so what's the story with this? So I went and I kind of went to the record store and I found some Charles Mingus stuff, and I forget what I got, maybe Mingus or something, but I kind of was trying to learn a little bit more about Charles Mingus, and then like I saw names like John Coltrane or Miles Davis or something, and so then I thought, well, maybe I should listen to some of these records too. And then the next jazz records, so I had like a Mingus record, and then the next record I got was Miles Davis, In a Silent Way, which is, you know, already sort of this pre, you know, rock jazz combo kind of thing. Trying to stay away from the F word there. And then, right, and John McLaughlin's on that, and Zawinul and all these dudes. And then I got a Coltrane record, which was called Impressions, which is, you know, kind of getting into that late period Coltrane playing already. So my first kind of ideas of jazz was already the stuff that was kind of stretching away from what was a little bit more kind of, you know, what now is seen as kind of a conservative taste in the music. So that was really kind of my starting point. And then I went back, you know, I would go back and sort of see where these guys came from and formed kind of my own likes and favorites of stuff like that. I got really into late Coltrane and really into Joe Henderson's playing, and really into 70s Miles, really into 80s Miles at a certain point too, which I think a lot of people kind of look down upon here and there for certain things. But all those bands are amazing. But then also, you know, trying to play bebop kind of stuff. And then really getting into a lot of modern types of players, you know, players and composers that are alive now, and some my own age, whose music I really love also. But again, I never wanted to draw that line of eschewing other genres. I just didn't think that was cool, you know, because there's so much like rock music I love. Sonic Youth, fIREHOSE was a big band for me. I mean, we could spend hours talking about all the bands I love, but I don't think that stuff is less important than maybe a music that has been codified in sort of a more like higher sort of social strata kind of a thing, you know.
Right.
I mean, I there's opera I love, and there's free jazz I love, and there's indie rock I love, and there's, you know, gamelan records I love. So why do I have to sit there and say I'm only going to do this? It doesn't make sense.
No, and you're kind of second generation already of players that came up like that. I mean, it kind of started with you know, Abercrombie and Frizzell and Schofield and Metheny, all guys who came up in the rock era, and you know, one way or another added that into their music. And you're already kind of the second generation of that, where that was already done. So it wasn't like, you know, I mean, being a jazz snob I think when you were coming up was it was a more limited crew, you know, I mean, of people who would be, you know, oh, I only play bebop on an archtop guitar. It's like,
yeah, I mean, I think there are still a lot of those people, which is the most surprising thing to me, you know, like being in New York for so long, there's like huge swaths of people who still feel that way, you know, and I would hear about it in various ways, whether it was directed at me or sort of passively or something. But I think also part of it's the instrument, you know, I mean, guitar.
Yeah.
It kind of came of age really in jazz once it was able to be amplified in a certain way, and the instrument itself has this life of its own and associations musically that happen because of what the instrument is. So I don't know if I would have ended up in the same place if I was a pianist or a trumpet player or something, but
Yeah, well, coming up, listening to Minutemen and fIREHOSE, do you ever have those on stage moments where, oh my God, I'm up here playing with Mike Watt?
I mean, I had more of those early on for
Yeah.
sure. But even more than that, with with Hodges on drums too. Like I tell this story a bunch too, that Watt's first opera, Contemplating the Engine Room, that's Mike Watt, his music with Stephen Hodges on drums and Nels Cline on guitar. And that sort of was an afterthought about how important that album was to me when I asked Stephen if he would join us to tour for the Wall of Flowers record, because Jim doesn't travel to play drums and stuff. So we still wanted to do some gigs, and I said, well, maybe we could do it with a different drummer. And I think Watt gave me Hodges' number, because I've just loved his drumming anyways. And then after the fact, I kind of realized, like, oh, this is really crazy, because the Engine Room record was something really important to me, and this is that band minus Nels, of course. And then I think we needed a little bit more material on that first tour, so Watt let us play a couple of tunes from Engine Room. We played Liberty Calls and No One Says Old Man to the Old Man. That was really trippy for me, because those are songs I had already knew before, just learned them from loving that record. And I'm friendly with Nels and stuff, but that was a trip, because then we're on stage playing these Engine Room tunes, and I'm like, oh, this is the band, except I'm playing guitar. So a couple strange moments there. And then we're making something we've been doing during the quarantine lockdown mode is we've been recording some 7-inch albums that are going to be coming out from our separate spaces. So I've been writing brand new music, making demos. Hodge will lay down the drums. Mike will play bass to that. And then I'll get it back and re-record my parts, and then we'll get it mixed and stuff. But we have one coming up in the pipeline, which is mssv meets Nels Cline. So I wrote a tune for one side, Nels wrote a tune for the other side, and it's all four of us. And then again, after we decided to do that and figured it out, I was kind of thinking, like, oh man, that's really crazy, because then now that's like the band from that album.
Right. Featuring Mike Baggetta.
I'm the fourth wheel.
Yeah. That's funny. I'm talking to Nels on Tuesday. I'll have to ask.
Oh, good.
Tell him I said hi about it. Yeah. No, I mean, those aha moments are pretty cool. I mean, I grew up listening to Eric Anderson, and then I was in his band in the 80s, and every now and then I'd be there going, wait, this is me on stage playing those tunes I listened to.
It's crazy. I mean, I had another moment like that back in New York when I was living there. I got to play with Lee Konitz a couple of times, just at his pad. He would have people over to play sessions and stuff. And I went over there to play duo with him a couple of times. And I remember the first time we were playing some tune, and I had my head down and I was playing, and I was playing chords, and Lee was soloing on alto. And I remember just like kind of playing and listening and being like, man, that sounds just like Lee Konitz. And you look up, it's Lee Konitz.
Yeah. So did you record this, the new record at Big Ego?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Same as Wall of Flowers down in Long Beach with Chris Schlarb.
And what were you using your Cole and the Fryette for most of the record?
Yeah, I was using the Freya Ether.
Yeah.
You can see it back there. And then I was using my first Cole. Well, I guess we're on video. I can just get them, right?
Sure.
Is that cool?
Yeah. Oh yeah. People love that.
All right. Hold on. I've two now. So this is the first Cole, kind of the one that's original to me. This is the Cole Superior. It's got kind of a smaller body than the other one I have, but it's still 25.5-inch scale, Fender scale.
When you say original to you, you meaning you designed it for yourself? I mean, you
No, sorry. This is the first Cole that I owned, is what I mean.
okay.
And I bought it used, I guess, from somebody else.
Okay.
Maybe I'm the second owner. It's so funny. Guitars are so funny. Like I play it and I go like, man, who would sell this thing? That's crazy.
Well, are those?
But yeah, this is the one I play.
You say that until you go to sell it. Are those P90s standard single coil, or are they hum canceling?
These are, well, these are kind of newish. These are harmonic design VP90s, which I really like. But these I put in a few months ago.
Okay.
And what I had on the record, and what I had in this before that, was Fralin P90s, Fralin hum canceling P90s with the Alnico pole pieces, like Strat pole pieces. And those are great pickups. But I don't know. I've kind of just been into not having hum canceling stuff lately. I think it kind of gives, for me, I hear a little bit more. I feel a little bit more like presence in the sound, which I kind of like. And the hum thing, the buzz thing has never been like crazy annoying to me so much. And I have that Strat back there you can see with Fralin big singles in it. Those are hum canceling, but they have a lot of presence, and they're sort of single coil E. That's the guitar I recorded Wall of Flowers with. And that's the one I played on the Torn record too.
And you use a volume pedal, right?
I do.
Yeah, so that's what we call the low-tech noise gate, you know.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's exactly what it is, yeah.
and there is a difference. I mean, I've used DiMarzio Virtual Vintage single coils in my Strats and Tele for years, and I finally decided in my 65 Tele Strat rather, I might as well put a real set of single coils in this to see, what difference it makes. Because I don't think I've had single coils in it since I traded the original to have EMGs put in it in the 70s. Mea culpa. But so I got some John Suhr 65 singles in it, and there's a difference. There's no getting around it, and for the most part, though, noise hasn't been an issue particularly.
Yeah, it doesn't drive me nuts. I mean, sometimes I'm in quiet situations, like if I'm playing with Joe Phillips, his orchestra, the Numinous stuff. I don't want, there's a lot of quiet music, and so I don't want to have the hum. But also, I can pop this in the middle position, and it's hum canceling,
okay.
and I kind of dig that sound too. I'm not somebody that can't do middle position when I need to, so I don't really. Basically, my main tenet is that I don't want to stress out over the minutia too much. I just want things to feel good so I can play and focus on the music.
Yeah. The quiet thing, though, is important because, one reason I put hum canceling in because I was doing so many quiet singer-songwriter house concert type gigs. And, you try and swell in a distorted note like a cello, and the hum comes in louder than the note, and that's when you run into problem. It sounds, speaking of both pickups on the record, it sounded to me like there were quite a number of places where it sounded like you were playing with both pickups on.
I probably was. I can't remember exactly, but I mean, that's another thing I'm kind of in the moment about. If I'm playing and I feel like I need a little more presence and I'm in the neck, I'll put it in the middle first. Right. And then if I need to cut more, I'll put it in the back. Or if I need a little more like mid forwardy kind of thing, I'll just put it in the back pickup. If I need a more open sound, I'll put it in the front pickup. I'm always changing stuff, based on what I want to hear and what I want it to feel like in the moment.
Sure. So what's the other? Is it another Cole?
There's a new Cole, which I ordered. I kind of been talking to him about for a while, and I got. When did this come in? This came in lockdown, so it must have been April or something like that, which is not a bad time to get a new guitar when you can't go anywhere and you're home for a while. So That's pretty cool. So this is a tornado, he calls it. It's
Oh,
kind of
wow.
the David Torn, Saul Cole model. Um, and yeah, this is just a great guitar. It's a full. The body and neck are all Carina, and it's also 25.5 inch Fender scale. Uh, rosewood neck, and this has the Curtis Novak. I guess they're kind of the Gaiatone pickup type
Okay.
thing,
So
and the finish is.
foil type.
I guess so. Yeah, they have that kind of foil thing happening, but it's sort of that bigger Gaiatone version. But
Right.
they sound great. They sound really open and really present, really airy. Single coil also, but you can pop it in the middle for hum canceling. And this one and the both coils have the kill switch right here, which is good for me for the way that I play because I'll reach it with my pinky and kind of use it as sort of appoggiatura kind of stuff.
For glitchy kind of sound.
Kind of glitchy, but also sort of like ornamental in a way too.
Okay.
Like I don't have it plugged in right now, but like the way you might kind of do a hammer on or something. I might play, just sort of delete the sound as an ornament rather than
Right.
adding a note as an ornament.
Oh,
Kind of, I
that's
like that
interesting.
idea of removal as addition.
All
Kind of. And this one hasn't been let's see, this one, I mean it's new, so it's not really on anything. It's on all the 7 inches that are going to be coming out. And if anybody caught the Big Ears album release video movie concert film thing we did, then I played this on there, which was a lot of fun too.
Now, how did you do that film? Was that from an earlier performance, or were you guys actually playing live together somewhere?
The way we did that was that I went down to no, it's all, I mean, it was all filmed just for that. So I went down to we all went out into the woods here, me and the Big Ears people, Watt and Hodges, they're in SoCal still, because we're not going to travel and stuff right now. This is part of the problem of having a band that's geographically challenged. Like we're just all in different places, so we come together for the stuff. But if you can't come together, what do you do? So that's been kind of the challenge we've been trying to meet this whole time, and figuring out pretty good ways to do it, I think. So, anyways, I went out there with the Big Ears skeleton crew. There was maybe half a dozen of us, a couple of videographers, sound guy, PA, and then we had these little ATVs, and so we went out to the this sort of abandoned quarry out here in Knoxville at the IAMS Nature Center. And I mean, it's like 40 minutes into the woods. It's like this sort of abandoned kind of like crazy ruinous thing. You saw some of the pictures at least. And they had a couple of gas powered generators. So I plugged in, set everything up, plugged all my stuff in. It was kind of a damp morning too. So luckily they were thoughtful enough to bring some moving blankets they put down on the floor, on the ground. Excuse me. And we filmed in a couple of different locations around there just for sort of visual difference. And I did a long solo improv piece that went into Hospital Song, a version of Hospital Song. And then I did another sort of solo drone improvisation that went into some of 9/20 December from the new record. But then Watt offered a reading over that of a few chapters from The Sand Pebbles by Richard McKenna, which is a great book that was made into a movie with Steve McQueen.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and but anyways, the name of our band comes from, in a roundabout way, from that book. It comes from a scene specifically in the movie version of the book, where this character Pohan learns the meaning of the steam cycle in the ship's engine, and there's a connection of that to contemplating the engine room also. So there's it's very prescient kind of like work for this band. So he was doing some readings from the Sand Pebbles over that piece.
Was he doing
And that,
in real time with you?
well, no, it was recorded separately. So I recorded my stuff. My stuff was captured with the video live, and then a different time Watt did his readings and sent that to us. And then we did 4 band pieces where these were all recorded separately. So Hodges laid down the drum part, recorded it separately, sent it to us. Watt played his bass to that. We took that track separately. And then those were spliced together with video of them playing to those parts, with me then playing to their recordings as it with in-ears while I was playing for the video. So it was, there's all these ways you have to figure out how to do stuff now. The end result, I think, was great. I mean, the end result, just speaking of us playing together as a band musically, the end result was great because I felt like I was in the moment playing with them as if we were on stage. The way they're playing wasn't, I didn't like listen to it a million times and learn every detail of their playing, because I wanted it to feel like we're on stage and I'm not sure when, Hodge is going to hit the cymbal or whatever. So I wanted to just sort of keep that feeling, that excitement sort of live thing for me. But also just the way it was put together was really beautiful. Like I was in this, this thing that looks like this like ruined, abandoned elfin underworld kind of thing. And Watt did his bass parts down by the ocean in Pedro, and Hodges did his video in a bunch of different places around his area in Long Beach. So it was kind of surreal in a way, and they did a great job with the video and the sound and everything. And it was cool because it's kind of the thing that we probably would have never made if we could have just gone on the road and done a bunch of gigs. Right. There just wouldn't have been time or really reason to do something like this. So I think, between us being able to do it and figure out how to do it, and the Big Ears Festival people having the, belief in us and desire to try to do something, we're all of this mindset. Like we're not just waiting for this to be over so we can go back to the things that we know how to do already, but this is an opportunity to try to do something different now and still make something positive. And, it's not like it's another sort of film of a gig you can't go to. We're not on stage and the camera's like, this is what it looks like in the club when they play. This is like this totally surreal thing that you wouldn't be able to attend because it would never exist in this way anyway. So it feels like a really, the best use of the situation in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff like that coming out of the situation. Getting it back to the record for a second, on the Mystery, is that slide? Are you playing slide on that, or is it just the way you're manipulating the whammy?
Yeah, the Mystery of, and that's a slide. Let me grab this too. This is my favorite slide, and this is a good opportunity to see if anybody can tell me where this is, because I have no idea where I got it, and I know I'm going to lose it, and I don't know where to get another one. So let me grab this too. I should have had all this stuff nearby.
That's okay.
I didn't know how much show and tell I'd be doing here, but this one is, I have a couple slides I use. I've been playing slide a little bit more than ever. I kind of fooled around with it in high school and stuff, but, I'm not like a Derek Trucks or George Harrison or something, but I've always loved that sound, and I've been able to kind of substitute a lot of things that I hear with whammy bar type of stuff a little bit. But I think since I was getting ready to make that record with Keltner and Watt, and also the not so secret is that there's a volume 2 from that session coming out next year, with me and Mike and Jim. But I sort of was listening to a lot of my favorite records with Jim on it, kind of not really getting ready, I guess kind of getting ready for that session, but not trying to act like anything was going to be the same, but just, I don't know, when I kind of get into a little character acting thing. If I know I'm going to play with somebody and I haven't played with them, I just listen to a lot of their stuff. I don't necessarily sit down and learn it, but I just kind of want to soak it in a little bit. So anyways, I was listening to a lot of Jim's playing with George Harrison, those George Harrison records. And one thing I love about George's playing is his slide playing, because it's not really like the way anybody else plays slide.
No, it's not.
It's free of a lot of that kind of slide cliche kind of stuff. It's just super melodic and this really deep, soulful sound. So I think as I was getting ready to make the records with Keltner and Watt, I ended up listening to a lot of the George Harrison stuff and realizing how much I loved his slide playing. And it re-inspired me to feel like, oh, maybe I should try that again. Maybe there's something there for me. So I have been off and on a little bit. But anyways, that slide is this one here, which is this really thin, like trashy piece of plastic thing. And I think it was the middle of like a roll of bubble wrap, and I got to the end of it and it was in there. And I actually was like very sure it was that. So I went out and bought 2 more rolls, and they were like these big rolls, and I just got them home and I just like unwrapped it all. And in the middle, it was like this cardboard tube. And I go, oh God, it's not that. So I don't really have any idea where it has like this ridge on one side too.
Yeah, it does look like the middle of a roll of some sort of tape, but
really bizarre. I don't know where I got it, but it's like very malleable too. It's like squishy. And I just, again, I know I'm going to lose it. I know it's going to break, but I've been using it on a lot of stuff. It's on the second album that's coming with Watt and Keltner. It's on this mssv one. It's on some of the 7-inch stuff. I think it's on, I used it on some other stuff I've tracked here during lockdown, but I love the tone of it because it's kind of
it's not
dead.
glass, it's plastic.
It's really muted.
Yeah, it's almost sitar-like.
Yeah, it's got that really short sustain, and it's kind of it sort of thickens the sound a little bit. So I love it, and I know it's going to break my heart someday. But if anybody knows what that is, send me an email.
Yeah. Well, Tronzo uses a lot of non-traditional things for slide, also for different sounds. He's into that. So on Every Growing Thing, does that start with an eventide loop, or is that a loop from the tensor, or there's some sort of loops going on through there?
That's definitely an time factor thing. The eventide time factor is what I just use it for the looper setting. I don't use any of the fancy delay stuff per se. I mean, I have for little background things here and there, but live, I keep it mounted. I think it's actually up there. Yep, it's up there right now. I keep it mounted up on a mic stand, so I can kind of access it really quick when I'm playing. And it's usually used for just sort of the longer looping stuff. So if you hear things that don't repeat for 10 or 20 or 30 seconds or something, it's that. The other thing I like about it is that you can kind of window through the loop. So if you have a 10-second loop, you can cut it down to a multi-millisecond slice and kind of play, through different sections of the loop, and you can widen it. You can get all these rhythmic things happening. It does a lot. I think people really kind of sleep on the looper capability of that. A lot of people want to be able to sort of maybe either make an ambient thing or sort of mangle it a little bit in real time and get really creative and have a lot of interaction with it. And that's what I want to do with it. And I think a lot of people were bemoaning the fate that those things didn't exist as readily as they may have at other times in the continuum of guitar effects, which was true. But this one does just like really great. It has a lot of great interactivity options. And I think for whatever reason, they didn't really sort of let people know about that too well. So it kind of flies under the radar, even today, oddly.
I think you said the H9 won't do some of the things that it does, even though it has a looping function.
Well, it has, it kind of has the function. I mean, you got to use the iPad with it, right? To be able to access everything quickly. Because I tried this for a while in the interest of kind of lightening my load a little bit. The H9's got the one wheel, but you just need to have really real-time ready access to all these parameters really quickly. You can't do that with the big knob, but if you set up the iPad and kind of Bluetooth connect with it, you can kind of do it, but there's a little bit of latency, and it just wasn't working for me. I
Right.
want
Yeah.
to know that when I'm going to change a parameter, it's because I'm hearing something in my head and I want that to happen in that moment. And if it doesn't happen, it throws everything off. So sometimes I'll rapidly enter little bits of information, like I'll play a chord or something, and I'll want to enter
Right.
it in, and that the Bluetooth latency with the iPad, you couldn't really go any faster than dot 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 dot
Right.
dot
Right.
kind of a thing. So this will do that, and then this also the time factor does this thing where I think it's a bug that they never fixed, but it's something that I've been able to utilize, which is I'll grab this too. It's right here. When you are kind of setting up the time length for the loop, you would set the length of the time, how long you want it to be, 21 seconds or something. But then and it would run a counter on here. It just runs the seconds down all the time, so it's like a clock. But then you can press this and go into tap tempo mode, what they call. Getting pretty gear nerd heavy right now, but
Oh, we're gonna get more geared in a bit.
well, this is nothing. Okay. So you can go into like tap tempo mode, and then instead of running a clock timer, it runs a beat timer. But it's just kind of like arbitrary. Like you can set the number of beats up here, but you've already set it for time, so you can't really change it. But anyways, you can enter tap tempo mode, and then I have an aux foot switch that has a tap switch on it, so then I can enter tap tempo on that. But if the number of beats doesn't line up with the timing, it replays a little bit and overlaps. So you can make it do like these really weird glitchy sort of overrun kind of things, just because you're sort of tricking the timer versus the tap timer versus the beats number. They took all that off the H9 control for that. You can't do it at all. And I remember I got that and I was like, oh no, they fixed it. They figured out that it was this bizarre thing, but it still exists on the time factor. So to me, the time factor is kind of the a little bit more fun, because it has that sort of stuff in there that is maybe a little bit wacky.
So, are you buying used ones off eBay just to make sure you have backups?
I mean, they're pretty.
Are they still making them?
I do have two, but that's a recent development. Actually, before the Big Ears video recording, the one I've been using forever kind of died. It just started freaking out, and then it just died. And so I wrote to Eventide, and they're super cool. They were going to fix it, so I mailed it to them. But it's like lockdown, right? So it's like hard to kind of figure out where. And I couldn't find. Yeah, they still make them, but I couldn't find one at like, Guitar Center or like the local places. Like nobody had one. So luckily, I was able to find a friend that did have one, and I borrowed his for the video shoot. And then when I got home, I ordered another one, and then I'm getting the one that's fixed back from Eventide soon. So
you'll have
I figure with something like that, you should it's a pretty important part of my playing now at this point. So yeah, I guess why not have another one?
Well, at the end of every growing thing, it sounds like there's a single note kind of reverse loop thing going. Is that also the Eventide? Or
it might be, or
you just
it's hard for me to
pedaling,
remember exactly.
What's that?
It's hard for me to remember exactly what the sound is. But if it's not the Eventide, it's the Tensor, the Red Panda Tensor, because those are really the only two things I use for looping. And for me, I kind of think about it this way. I think about the Tensor generally, not always, but generally the regular kind of travel pedal board stuff. The Tensor comes before the time factor. So for me, the Tensor does kind of the shorter, glitchier kind of stuff. And then I can run that into the Eventide and create a longer texture with that. So the Eventide does the longer stuff. But the Tensor I'll also use for like reverse effects a little bit. So if you're hearing a short thing, it's probably from the Tensor, and then it could be further processed by the time factor.
Are you using the tensor? Speaking of glitchy, there's some glitchy stuff at the beginning and during Old Crow. Is that also?
That's the tensor
That
for
is the
sure. Yeah.
tensor. Yeah. And
Oh,
you.
actually, although actually, I said that so matter of factly, but I think actually that is the time factor. Because the other thing that I like to do on the time factor is you can shut off the you can control the amount of feedback. So if you play something and then it'll put it in the loop and it'll keep playing it, or if you keep the loop open, you play something but you have the feedback down, it'll just repeat it once, even though it's still recording, right? So a lot of times what I'll do, and this is the thing that I've heard, I think the first time I kind of clued into what was happening, I heard it as a Frizzell thing, like on the first Frizzell trio live with Kermit and Joey Barron.
Yeah.
I think it's just called Live, but they play a Sonny Rollins tune, No Mo, and the intro to that tune, Frizzell, I heard does a lot. I kind of figured out what it was, and it's sort of like no feedback, and the loop is constantly open, but you can manipulate the pitch and the speed, right? So you can play da 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 da, turn the speed up, and you get the da 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 da, right? But then it disappears, so it just plays one time, and that's a really fun thing to improvise with. It's like you're improvising with another player. You kind of maybe know what's going to happen, but you've changed the parameter to an extent that it still surprises you, and you can respond to that. And then your response, you can also change how that comes back to you. So just using a looper where you can change parameters and improvise with in real time, the time factor is great for that too.
Right.
You know, and I'm sure there's other people that did it before, but that was just the first source that I heard that specific way of interacting with it a long time ago.
Was the time factor used for the atmospheric sounds on If Anybody Else Could Help also?
Yep. Yeah, because those are longer loops too. But again, like sometimes a lot of what's going in, I've kind of put something into the tensor, and then I'll end up kind of layering that in the eventide, and then I'll change what's in the tensor, and then that'll layer in the eventide, and then I'll manipulate stuff that's only in the eventide. So I'm kind of using them as a bigger connected unit in a way.
Sure. Well, while we're on it, yeah, you sent me pictures of your board, which I will either attempt to insert in a video over our discussion of it or post down below. But if we could run through it, some things are self-explanatory. There's a Dynacomp compressor, a blues driver. What do you like about the Boss Fuzz FZ3? That's an odd
Yeah,
fuzz choice.
man, I love that thing. You know, I kind of I have these like little intermittent periods where I get really into John Frusciante's playing again from the Chili Peppers and his other various endeavors. I think he's a great musician. I think he's one of these guys that like you can tell like he kind of eats and breathes and loves music just from kind of hearing him play. And that's, you know, that's exciting to me, so I respond to that. But so sometimes I get into like, oh, what's he doing on this, you know? So like anybody else, I'll check out what he's got. And I think at one point in time I saw some picture of some pedal board from some era where he had one of those on there, and I'd kind of had one kicking around for a while, because I'm sure I saw that and I found one for like $50 or something. It's like one of these things nobody wants, you know. But it's a great sound. It's kind of like a combination of it's not really fuzz face. It's a little grittier kind of in a way. It's a little more like tone bender ish. But you know, it's a Boss pedal, right? So it's buffered. So you don't really get like all that like Hendrix style cleanup with the volume knob. You do get some, but it kind of cleans up into this sort of like a little more crumbly kind of sound, which I also like, but I just like the sound of it. Just in general, it does what I want when I want to put that sound on, you know, and it's not dissimilar to the way I was kind of using the trombetta pedals when I'd want to have like a big full fuzz sound. It does a lot of that type of sound, but it doesn't do that crazy cleanup response thing. But anyways, the reason I'm kind of using that one more is because I like to have the pitch stuff I do first, like the whammy pedal stuff.
Okay.
I like to have that before the dirt because I think if I'm going to use distortion or fuzz and there's like a pitch thing going on, to me it sounds better to have the pitch stuff first. That's just me, right? But so I found that when I have like a real honest to goodness germanium or silicone fuzz kind of thing, like like a like a trombetta pedal or like some Screddy pedals I have or some other stuff, when you put the pitch stuff first, in this case the thing I'm doing with the whammy is kind of always buffered, so you lose the cleanup response with the germanium and silicone fuzzes, like the stuff that's really legit, kind of not Boss style fuzz. So it kind of just negates that whole part of the experience for me. But also, if you have the pitch stuff first and then you turn on the germanium fuzz, it really raises the noise floor like crazy. You get super huge like hiss sounds happening, to an extent that are a little too abrasive for me to deal with. So I just kind of was thinking like, I wish there was a way I could get this sound that I like, but not have to sweat all of this other sort of nonsense that's going on. So I pulled out the FC3, and it's great.
Is that digital or silicon?
No.
Or?
No, yeah, that's all transistors.
Yeah.
Okay. The FC5 is all digital, I think. That's the one people don't want. I think it probably sounds fine too, yeah. But people get freaked out about stuff. But the FC3s are cool.
How does the Carcosa differ from the FC3?
That one I kind of end up using it for like kind of like broken fuzz pedal sounds. Like if you have a regular fuzz pedal and you turn the bias way down, you get all that crumbly, kind of beautiful decay, end times, society degradation sounds. So that's kind of what I'm using it for, but that's a real ripper too. I mean, that thing cuts really, really nicely. So I have it set so that if I only use the Carcosa, it's this really crumbly, kind of low bias, broken kind of sound, which I dig. But then if I I can put the blues driver and or the Dynacomp on before it, and it boosts it back up into the territory of like a real kind of full kind of ripper sort of a fuzz.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's
so now I get like the main point of all that the first four kind of pedals I'm using is that I'm doing a lot more sort of like levels of gain than I ever did before, because I used to just have the trombetta fuzz, which I love and I still have, but that would be the whole thing, and I'd be controlling it with the volume knob. But like anything, there's trade-offs, and just for some of the stuff I wanted to kind of be doing more, it made more sense to kind of just go in this direction for now and see how it goes.
Yeah, the Carcosa is another underrated pedal that people didn't quite pick up on, but I remember when it first came out, and it's a great sounding fuzz. It's a really terrific sounding fuzz. So
the other thing that's cool is like they're not, some of these things are not crazy expensive too, and I'm not like a person that's like, yeah, you don't have to spend a lot of, like, I mean, if something I want to make a certain sound to make the music better, sometimes the stuff's expensive, you got to just sort of eat it a little bit. But it's cool to know that there's stuff that's not expensive that makes amazing sounds. I mean, that's kind of maybe an obvious statement, but I just hope it's something that a lot of people don't overlook, don't think like, oh, I have to get this super expensive thing before I can really know what it feels like. You don't.
No, I mean, Coles and Fryettes notwithstanding, of course.
I can't really talk about it too much, but
I was gonna say, after those two, that's all you can afford pedal wise, basically.
Well, I mean, look, I had a Strat into a Twin and whatever for a long time. So
yeah. So what is that secret preamp?
That's a pedal by this guy Kyle Chase, Chase Tone Effects.
Not to be confused with Chase Bliss Effects.
Right, different Chase effects. I was turned on to this by Henry Kaiser, and I think I probably use this pretty differently than he does. I think he says when he uses it first, right after his guitar, before any other pedal. I could be wrong, but I put it after sort of the drive, what I consider the drive gain leveling stuff. And so for me, in that way, it's kind of like an amp filter-ish kind of thing. Basically, it's the preamp from the Echoplex EP3.
Okay.
And it's got a couple of different EQ settings on it, like dark, bright, and mids. And then it's got a boost kind of volume knob level on it. But I find that for me, it has the effect of, when people say like, oh yeah, you got to use this fuzz into a amp or into a dirty amp, or it doesn't sound good. Like people talk about that kind of stuff. What they're really talking,
it sounds different. It doesn't necessarily.
What they're really talking about is this sort of filtration effect. Like you have to kind of knock some of the highs off, I think is what they're always talking about. So anyways, the effect that has for me is that I think the FZ3, that Boss fuzz pedal, I've had an experience with certain amps where it's like super, super bright kind of high end stuff. And there's different ways to deal with that, but that secret preamp kind of has a good effect of sort of rounding the EQs for guitar in very specific ways that sounds really good to me. And for someone that uses a lot of backline amps like me, when I travel around, I just show up and use different amps night to night. Sometimes an effect like that secret preamp is a lifesaver for that.
Right. Well, now that we're not traveling around much, so you're doing the 7-inch singles, and what else? Are you still teaching?
Yep, I'm teaching a little bit. So I'm doing that over video. Yeah, we're doing, the record just came out, so that's been going really good. We're making a bunch of 7 inches, so that's cool. There's other projects I'm on that are coming out. And I've been doing a little bit of work for my friendly neighborhood effects pedal company, Hologram Electronics. They're based out of Knoxville. And so I did a lot of work with them for the Microcosm when that was coming out. So, and that was really cool because that all started when the MSSV tour got postponed. We did a big US tour in March, like everybody else. It was going to be about 30 days or something, and that got postponed. So I started working with Hologram at that point, doing a lot of testing for them and doing a little bit of, just giving them my thoughts about things and talking with them about it for the Microcosm. And that's been a really fruitful relationship for a while. Remind
me, what does the Microcosm do again? I posted your demo of it.
What does it do? It's kind of like a suite of ambient style effects with a phrase looper. And that description doesn't really scratch the surface, but it's sort of, it has a lot that comes from the synth world. Attack envelope shape has a lot to do with how it triggers the effects that are in it, which to me is kind of a synth thing. I would just go watch the videos, go read them.
Well, yeah, you should. I don't know if they know, but if you, Tim Pierce has a video channel, the LA session guy, and in every video you're looking at him, and sitting on the side there is one of the old hologram pedal. I forgot what it was called, but
they have two. They have the Dream Sequence and the Infinite Jets.
Yeah, he's got. I think it's an Infinite Jets. He's got one sitting there right on his board. So how is Knoxville coping with the COVID lockdown?
Well, I think it's probably like anywhere. Some people are kind of doing what they're supposed to be doing, and a lot of people are just doing whatever they want. So yeah, I could drive down the street with my mask on to like get ready to run into the grocery store and get like 2 things and then go home for a week, and I can see 50 people just hanging out at the restaurants like it's just another day. So I don't really know what to say about that stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for the interview. Well, I'll post this as the interview, and we can do a little catching up after. But
cool.
Yeah, I encourage people to check out the record because the record sounds great. And
now,
when you say 7 inches, that's going to be vinyl.
Yep. Yeah. Just 2 songs. Well, usually 2 songs. The first one that's a pre-order now. You can get it. It's coming out November 13th. It's for a label out of Bologna, Italy, called Improved Sequence, and that has a new song on side A and a new song on side B. So it's just 2 tracks. The next one that's going to come out is sort of a nano opera. It's four movements based on artwork by Scott Eicher, who's a great kind of cartoon artist out of San Pedro, California. Kind of I'm spacing on the guy who made those Ratfink cartoons.
Oh yeah, Big Daddy Roth. Well, the guy who did he was connected with Big Daddy Roth, the hot rod guy, but I forgot. I know exactly who you're talking about.
That kind of look to them. So he gave us 4 panels of new artwork from him, and I kind of made like a little sort of storyline about them, and then I scored the storyline. So there's 4 tracks, one for each of these panels. A couple of them have lyrics from Watt, and then we recorded that music. So that's going to be a gatefold 7-inch kind of special edition thing. So you'll see the 4 panels from Eicher, and then our 4 movements that go along with that. That'll be coming out in a couple months. And then the last one that we have planned so far is the MSSV meets Nels Cline, which we're kind of recording now, in the process of recording now.
Cool. And people can get this on your website at Mike.
They'll all be listed on all the stuff. So you can go to mainsteamstopvalve.com. With that band has a website. You can go to mikebaggetta.com, and you can find them all on the Bandcamp stuff for all of that too.
That's great. All right, Mike. We'll call the interview here. I'm gonna.
All right. Cool.
Stop
Thank
recording.
you, Michael.